You know that deeply frustrating feeling when you finally lie down at the end of a really long, exhausting day?
Oh, yeah. The absolute worst.
Right. You close your eyes, you pull the covers up, and instead of drifting off into a peaceful sleep, your brain suddenly decides it's the perfect time to review every single awkward conversation you've had since like 2014.
Oh, absolutely. Or it starts preparing for an argument you're probably never even gonna have.
Yes, or worse, you find yourself mentally shadowboxing with a complete stranger who left some weird passive-aggressive comment on your social media post like 6 hours ago.
Which happens to all of us, honestly.
It really did. I mean, I had this happen just last week. I was physically in my bed, fluffed pillows, chamomile tea on the nightstand, the whole setup. But mentally, I was in a trench fighting for my life against a guy with an egg avatar who disagreed with my take on a movie.
A literal egg avatar.
Exactly. And you are drained, you're completely depleted, but you're too wired to rest. And I mean, I think the sheer weight of navigating this negative, noisy, constantly connected world is just, well, it's a universal modern feeling for everyone listening to this right
It
now.
really is. It's the ultimate paradox of modern life,
Yeah.
And it points to this really profound shift in human psychology.
How so?
Well, historically, when human beings secured their physical perimeter, so when the cave was safe or the village gates were locked, the nervous system could finally power down.
Right, because the literal tiger couldn't get in.
Exactly. But today, we have never been more physically safe, sitting in our locked, climate-controlled bedrooms. Yet psychologically, we feel constantly under siege.
Wow. Yeah, that's so
The boundary between the chaotic outside world and our inner mental sanctuary has just completely dissolved. I mean, we are carrying the entire village, including all of its conflicts, right into our beds via the devices in our hands.
Which is just wild when you think about it. And that dissolution of boundaries is exactly the core problem we are tackling today.
It's a big one.
It is. Our mission for this deep dive is to unpack a highly unique, holistic framework for protecting your mental peace, shaking off that daily layer of negativity, and ultimately getting a deeply restorative night's sleep.
Which everyone needs right now.
Desperately. So, we're looking at a fascinating, multi-layered stack of sources today. We're pulling teachings and excerpts from a modern creator named Blaze, who also goes by Blaze on Fire.
Right. On fire with an FYAH.
Yes, exactly. And we're placing her contemporary advice alongside a comparative textual analysis of the standard King James Version of the Bible and the ancient Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Bible.
Which is such an interesting pairing.
It really is. And finally, we have some really striking visual materials that detail the ancient concept of the armor of God. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Well, this specific collection of materials is compelling because it moves far beyond the standard, often pretty superficial advice of just, thinking positive or doing a 2-minute deep breathing exercise.
Right, the typical wellness stuff.
Exactly. What we are looking at here is a synthesis of ancient spiritual traditions, centuries-old defensive metaphors, and highly practical modern self-care.
It's a whole system.
It is. It operates on the premise that peace is not something you passively experience. It is a fortress you must actively build and ruthlessly defend.
Ruthlessly defend. I like that. So let's start with how Blaze frames the human mind, because it really sets the stakes for everything else we're talking about today.
But her framing is very specific.
Right, she doesn't describe the mind as a computer or a processing center, which is what we usually hear. She uses this very agricultural, almost territorial language. She calls the mind precious ground.
Precious ground.
Yeah, and she leans on that old saying that an idle mind is the devil's playground. The core idea here is that if you aren't actively, intentionally cultivating what happens in your head, something else is going to move in.
And usually something negative.
Exactly. It sets up shop and talks over the territory.
Which makes a lot of sense. And that spatial territorial metaphor holds a lot of weight when we look at how the brain actually functions, clinically speaking.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, in cognitive psychology and neuroscience, we look closely at what is called the default mode network, or the DMN.
The DMN. Okay.
To put it simply, the DMN is essentially your brain's screensaver.
I love that analogy.
It's the network of interconnected brain regions that activate when you are not focused on the outside world, when your mind is just wandering.
So when I'm staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., not doing a specific task, my default mode network is what's running the show.
Precisely. That's the DMN in action. And here's the evolutionary catch, right? The DMN did not evolve to make you feel happy and relaxed.
Well, it's definitely failing if that was the goal.
Right. It evolved to keep you alive. For our ancient ancestors, an idle moment was actually a really dangerous moment.
Because you weren't paying attention.
Exactly. If you weren't actively hunting or foraging, your brain needed to scan the horizon for tigers or obsess over social dynamics in the tribe so you wouldn't get cast out to starve. The brain's default state is threat scanning.
Oh, wow. So it's literally designed to look for problems.
Yes, but today, there are no tigers in your bedroom. So your DMN applies that same intense life-or-death survival mechanism to, like, an unanswered email or a weird look from your boss or a looming financial deadline.
That explains so much.
Right. So Blaze's assertion that an idle mind is dangerous is neurobiologically sound. If you don't give the garden a purpose, it grows the weeds of rumination and anxiety.
That is wild. And she gives her community a very specific tool for pulling those weeds, which is words. She argues that words are like seeds and that the tongue holds the power of life and death.
Which is a very ancient concept.
Right. She urges her followers to speak things into existence and to actively maintain boldness and good cheer. She'll ask her audience, what is one power word you are speaking over your life this week?
A power word.
Yeah. It requires active verbal participation. You can't just hope to have a peaceful night. You have to audibly declare it.
And we see this concept across numerous disciplines, actually.
Yeah.
In linguistics and psychology, there is the concept of linguistic determinism.
Which is what exactly?
It's the idea that the language we use actively shapes our perception of reality. But Blaze elevates this by connecting it to spiritual authority.
Right. It's not just psychology for her.
No, by calling them power words, she is attempting to give the individual an internal locus of control. If you believe your environment is hostile, which she frequently notes it is, you cannot wait for the environment to comfort you.
You have to create the comfort yourself.
Exactly. You have to verbally construct the atmosphere you want to inhabit.
And she is incredibly candid about that hostile environment. She describes modern society as growing more wicked each day.
Which a lot of people feel right now.
Totally. Whether a listener subscribes to that specific spiritual framing or not, it undeniably mirrors how a massive portion of the population feels when they look at the news or open a social media app.
Oh, without a doubt.
She focuses heavily on people she calls good-hearted people, or chosen ones. And the defining characteristic of a chosen one in this framework isn't just that they are special or uniquely gifted,
Right.
it's that they are actively targeted. They are magnets for haters and what she calls low vibrational trolls.
That phrase alone, low vibrational trolls, it just perfectly captures the ambient exhaustion of the internet era.
Doesn't it? It's so accurate.
But she is identifying a mechanism here that goes way beyond simple online bullying. She introduces the concept of energy swapping.
This part is fascinating.
It really is. She described how negative people, these vampires of the world, they don't just act out randomly. They specifically target people with good energy to spread their negativity.
They're looking for a battery to drain.
Essentially, yes. They want to swap their bad energy for your good energy. They leave you drained so they can feel full.
You know, I have a perfect example of this. I used to work with a guy who would come to my desk every single morning, slump into the spare chair, and just dump every grievance he had about his life.
Oh, I think we've all worked with that guy.
Right. The company, the commute, his dog, literally everything. He would complain for 20 straight minutes. And the wild part was watching his physical transformation.
What would happen?
By minute 20, he would stand up, stretch, look visibly refreshed, and walk away with a spring in his step.
Wow.
Meanwhile, I would be sitting at my desk feeling like I had just been hit by a truck. I was completely devoid of motivation. He literally swapped his heaviness for my lightness.
It's so common.
Yeah.
And what you experienced is a documented psychological phenomenon called emotional contagion.
Emotional contagion, or
Yes, humans are highly empathetic social primates. We possess mirror neurons that cause us to subconsciously mimic the facial expressions, vocal tones, and emotional states of the people around us.
So I was absorbing his stress without even realizing it.
Exactly. When your coworker dumped his anxiety onto you, your nervous system automatically began absorbing and mirroring that distress. He used you as an external emotional regulator.
That is so unfair.
It is. He offloaded his psychological burden right onto your nervous system. So Blaze's framework of energy swapping takes this clinical reality and gives it a highly tangible, almost transactional face.
It makes it easier to spot.
Right. It forces you to realize that your peace and your good energy are highly valuable resources. And if you aren't careful, people will subconsciously steal them to regulate themselves.
Okay, so her solution to this theft is what she calls hermit mode. She advocates that these chosen ones should love their me time and actively separate themselves from the worldly crowd.
Hermit mode.
Yeah. She argues that being single, staying to yourself, and stepping back from the social grind isn't a failure. She says it actually leads to better health, more money, and immense mental peace.
I can see the logic there.
She recommends going into hermit mode for a few days just to recharge. But I want to challenge this idea for a second.
Okay, let's hear it.
Isn't hermit mode just a rebranded form of avoidance? I mean, in a world that is already suffering from an epidemic of loneliness, telling people to shut out the world seems counterproductive.
That's a very fair critique.
Furthermore, it feels like a massive privilege. Like if you are a single parent or you work 2 customer-facing jobs just to make rent, you can't just declare hermit mode and disappear into a peaceful cocoon for a few days. How does this apply to the real world?
Those are crucial distinctions to make. First, regarding avoidance versus healing, we really have to look at the difference between isolation and solitude.
Okay, what's the difference?
Isolation is reactive.
Yeah.
It is driven by fear, shame, or a desire to hide from the world, and it absolutely contributes to the loneliness epidemic.
Right.
Solitude, however, is proactive and restorative. It is the intentional curation of your environment to allow your nervous system to recover.
So it's about intent.
Exactly. And to your second point about privilege, you are entirely correct that a multi-day retreat from society is a luxury many cannot afford. But the principle of hermit mode can be microdosed.
Microdosed solitude. I like that.
Right. It might not mean disappearing for 3 days. It might mean turning off your phone notifications for 30 minutes before you go to sleep.
Oh, that's doable.
Or it might mean sitting in your car for 5 minutes in silence before walking into your house after work. It is about establishing vital, non-negotiable boundaries, however small they have to be, to prevent that continuous energy swapping.
Okay, let's build on that idea of boundaries using the garden metaphor from earlier. I think in today's hyper-connected world, the mind isn't just a garden. It is an exclusive, high-end VIP club.
A VIP club. Okay, I'm with you.
And your mental peace is the hottest ticket in town. If you don't have a massive, intimidating, highly trained bouncer at the front door operating with a very strict guest list, anyone can just wander in off the street.
Right, the door's just wide open.
Exactly. The low vibrational trolls from the internet, the energy vampire coworkers, the random anxieties about an email, they all just walk right past the velvet rope, grab a drink, and completely ruin the vibe of your club.
That's a great visual.
So hermit mode, or micro-solitude, isn't about shutting down the club permanently. It's about putting the velvet rope back up and letting the bouncer say, private event tonight, only restorative thoughts are on the list.
I really like the architecture of that metaphor. But let's complicate the VIP club idea for just a moment.
Okay.
What happens if your bouncer becomes too strict? If you reject every single person, every piece of difficult news, every challenging conversation, your club just becomes an empty, echoey room.
You go out of business.
Exactly. You go bankrupt. Total isolation stunts growth. The goal of the bouncer isn't to keep everyone out. It is to strictly filter the intent of who is coming in.
Right. You want the good guests.
Yes. You want to admit the friend who needs genuine support, but you want to reject the troll who is just there to smash glasses.
That makes perfect sense.
And applying this directly to the listener's nighttime routine, look at your own digital habits. Are you leaving the front door of your mental VIP club wide open at 11:30 p.m.?
Probably.
Are you doom scrolling through a social media feed right before you close your eyes? Because if you are, you're essentially inviting a crowd of thousands of strangers, marketers, and angry commenters directly into your bedroom to shout at you while you try to rest.
That is a terrifying image, but it's exactly what we do. We lay in the dark and let the whole world stomp over our precious ground.
We really do.
So the core question becomes, how do we build that bouncer? What is the security system for the mind that allows us to filter out the noise and actually sleep?
And this brings us to the next layer of our sources.
Right. Because it turns out ancient texts have been providing the blueprint for this exact type of mental and spiritual security system for thousands of years.
They absolutely have.
Blaise points specifically to Psalm 91 as a powerful song, prayer, and shield.
Yes, and Psalm 91 is an incredibly dense, multi-layered text. It has served as a foundational defensive strategy across multiple cultures and centuries.
It's everywhere.
It is. If we look at the King James Version, it opens with this evocative spatial imagery. It says, "He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty."
this secret place.
Right. Immediately, the text establishes a geographical location of absolute safety, a secret place.
And the language in the KJV is so dramatic. It's almost cinematic in its protection. It talks about God being a refuge and a fortress. It promises deliverance from the snare of the fowler.
The fowler.
Right, and a fowler is someone who traps birds. So the imagery is about avoiding hidden traps set specifically for you.
Very specific threats.
Yeah. It also mentions protection from the noisome pestilence, which sounds like a deeply overwhelming, destructive sickness or trouble.
Yeah.
But it's verse 5 that really zeroes in on our topic of sleep.
What does it say?
It says, "Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day." It is a literal 247 security guarantee, starting specifically with the terrors of the night.
Furthermore, look at the specific military terminology in verse 4. It says, "His truth shall be thy shield and buckler."
Shield and buckler, what's the difference?
Well, a shield is large, designed to block incoming long-range projectiles, right?
Yeah.
Like the arrows flying by day. But a buckler is a small, heavy, highly maneuverable shield strapped to the forearm.
Oh, like for close combat.
Exactly. It's used specifically in close quarters, hand-to-hand combat. So the text is offering comprehensive defense, protection from the distant, ambient anxieties, and protection from the intimate close-up attacks.
That's incredible. But to truly understand the depth of how this text is used as an active protective tool, we have to look at how it is interpreted in one of the oldest continuous Christian traditions on the planet.
The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church.
Exactly. The source is brought in the Ethiopian Bible known as the Metzahef Quidus, and there are major structural differences right from the start.
Massive differences.
The Ethiopian Orthodox canon is huge. It contains 81 books, compared to the standard 66 books found in Western Protestant Bibles. And interestingly, Psalm 91 in the KJV is actually numbered as Psalm 90 in the Ethiopian tradition.
We should definitely unpack why that numbering difference exists, because it speaks to the ancient lineage of this tradition.
Yeah, please explain that.
Well, the Ethiopian Church relies heavily on translations derived from the Septuagint. For listeners who might not be familiar with that term, the Septuagint is a Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible that was created in the 3rd and 2nd centuries BCE.
So it's very old.
It's ancient. It is actually older than the standard Hebrew Masoretic text that most modern Western Bibles are translated from. Because the Septuagint numbered the Psalms slightly differently, combining a few of the earlier ones, everything is shifted by one.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Additionally, the Ethiopian tradition preserves and reads these texts in the ancient liturgical language of Agais. Right. It's a Semitic language that is no longer spoken in daily life, much like Latin in the Catholic Church, but it holds a profound sacred weight.
And the way they view this specific psalm in that ancient Ge'ez tradition is a massive shift from how it's often read in the West.
It really is.
In the West, Psalm 91 is often read as like a comforting poem at a funeral or in a moment of grief. But the Ethiopian tradition does not view it merely as a comforting poem.
No.
They view it as a literal deployed weapon. It is a spiritual shield used specifically against a figure the tradition identifies as the demon that stalks in the darkness.
And we have to consider the psychology of the night in the ancient Near Eastern and African contexts.
Right, before electricity.
Exactly. Before streetlights, the night was a time of profound vulnerability. It was when physical predators, like lions or hyenas, hunted. But it was also universally understood across ancient cultures that spiritual predators, chaotic forces, and demons were most active in the dark.
It was a terrifying time.
Very. So reciting this psalm wasn't a passive wish for good luck. It was an active, verbal warding off of actual perceived threats. When the ancient texts refer to God's truth as a weapon, it implies active combat. You are not waiting for peace to arrive. You are fighting for your perimeter.
Okay, so to bring this into a modern context, I initially thought about this like a cybersecurity firewall intercepting corrupted data, but let's make it more physical, more grounded in the listener's everyday life.
Sure.
Think about the ritual of locking up your house at night. You walk to the front door, you turn the deadbolt, you check the backsliding glass door, you might punch a code into an alarm system keypad.
Right, the routine.
That physical routine signals to your brain that the perimeter is secure. In this framework, the demon that stalks in the darkness isn't necessarily a literal monster under the bed.
No.
It's the sudden spiking terror of a 2 a.m. panic attack, or the intrusive thought about a past trauma that tries to breach your system when you are powered down and vulnerable.
Yes, exactly.
Reciting Psalm 91 is the spiritual and psychological equivalent of throwing the deadbolt and setting the alarm. It tells your nervous system the doors are locked, the perimeter is secure, You are allowed to rest.
That physical home security analogy maps perfectly onto the intense imagery found later in the psalm. The text talks about treading upon the lion and the adder and trampling the young lion and the dragon under your feet.
Okay, let's pause on that because this is where the text creates a lot of friction for me.
Oh, how so?
Well, our entire mission today is about finding peace, shaking off negativity, and reaching deep restorative REM sleep. But the imagery we are using to get to sleep is incredibly, brutally violent.
It is intense.
You are trampling dragons. You are crushing venomous snakes under your feet. How does visualizing mortal combat with the dragon lead to a peaceful night's rest? I mean, it seems like it would just spike your adrenaline.
It's a fantastic observation, and it really cuts to the core of archetypal psychology. The violence in this imagery is not directed at people. You are not imagining crushing your annoying coworker. The lion, the adder, the dragon, these are ancient, universal archetypes of sudden destruction, hidden, venomous dangers, and overwhelming primal chaos.
So they represent the anxiety itself.
Yes, you cannot find peace by pretending chaos doesn't exist. If you know there is a threat, your brain will keep you awake to monitor it. By verbally declaring that you have the power to trample the dragon underfoot, you are asserting absolute psychological dominance over your worst anxieties.
Oh, wow.
You aren't tossing and turning, fighting the dragon in your bed all night. You are stating that the fight is already over. You have won. The threat is neutralized. You can only truly reach deep REM sleep when you are completely confident that you are the most powerful entity in your own mental space.
It makes profound sense. You sleep when the lion is a rug on the floor, not when it's pacing outside the door.
Exactly. The threat is handled.
So think about this in your own life. What does your secret place look like? When the arrows fly by day, which today is like a barrage of stressful Slack messages, breaking news alerts, or financial anxieties, where do you retreat to reset the deadbolt?
It's a great question for everyone to ask themselves.
Because having that overarching shield of Psalm 91, that perimeter fence, is step one. But what makes our source material so compelling is that it doesn't stop at the perimeter.
No, it goes much deeper.
It recognizes that sometimes the anxiety gets past the front door. Sometimes you need personal close quarters protection. Which brings us to the famous armor of God described in the book of Ephesians, chapter 6.
Yes, the text in the King James Version states, "Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places."
Which is such epic language.
It is. And this explicitly reestablishes the premise that your ultimate battle for peace is not against flesh and blood. It's not against the guy cutting you off in traffic.
Right.
It is an energetic, spiritual, and psychological battle against systems of negativity and chaos. To survive it, the text outlines 6 specific pieces of metaphorical armor.
Now, rather than just reading a list of these 6 items, let's weave them together, because the comparative textual analysis here between the Western Protestant tradition and the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo tradition is staggering.
It really is fascinating.
They use the same 6 pieces of armor derived from the same Greek New Testament. But because the Ethiopian tradition filters these concepts through the gaze language and thousands of years of unique African Christian history, the application of the armor shifts dramatically.
The focus changes completely.
Let's look at how one piece of armor fundamentally relies on the next. It begins with the belt of truth. In the Western KJV tradition, truth is often interpreted doctrinally.
Right, like theological correctness.
Yeah, knowing the facts of your faith to hold your worldview together.
But if we look at the Ethiopian concept of truth, the word is hamanat. It is much more foundational. It is about living a life utterly devoid of secrets, lies, or facades.
Oh, wow. Just total transparency.
Exactly. From a psychological standpoint, deception carries a massive cognitive load. If you are pretending to be someone you aren't, or if you are hiding a lie, your brain has to constantly expend energy to maintain that false reality.
You have to keep the story straight.
You have to remember who you told what. It is an exhausting way to live. Amonot suggests that living in absolute transparent truth keeps your life tight and secure, much like a thick leather belt holds your core muscles together in combat. When you tell the truth, you never have to look over your shoulder.
And that foundational honesty is the prerequisite for the second piece of armor, which is the breastplate of righteousness. Because you can't be righteous if your foundation is built on lies. In the KJV, righteousness is heavily focused on personal moral purity. avoiding sin to protect your vital organs, your heart. It's largely an internal, individualistic pursuit,
Yes.
but the Ethiopian focus takes that internal purity and forcefully externalizes it.
Exactly. In the Ethiopian tradition, righteousness is inextricably linked to active mercy and almsgiving.
Be generosity.
Yes, you do not protect your heart merely by avoiding doing bad things. You protect your heart by actively doing good things for others. Generosity becomes a defensive tactic.
I find that concept so moving, generosity as a defensive tactic. But how does giving your money or time to someone else protect your heart?
It breaks the cycle of narcissism and self-obsession that anxiety breeds.
Oh, because when you're anxious, you're only thinking about yourself.
Right. When you are highly anxious, your world shrinks down to the size of your own problems. By engaging in acts of mercy, feeding the hungry, helping a neighbor, you build a spiritual and emotional buffer. You connect with community, which increases oxytocin and lowers cortisol.
That's amazing.
Your outward mercy literally fortifies your internal emotional resilience.
Which flows perfectly into the third piece, the shoes of peace. You have your core secured with honesty, your heart protected by generosity, and now you have to actually walk out into the world.
Right.
The KJV talks about having your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace, being ready to march out and spread a message. But the practical application in the Ethiopian tradition is deeply focused on the manner in which you walk through your daily life.
It is about traction. Life is full of slippery ground. Workplace drama, family arguments, social media outrage.
It's all mud.
Exactly. If you don't have good traction, you slip and fall into that mud. The shoes of peace represent a commitment to avoiding gossip, refusing to escalate petty arguments, and bringing a calming presence into chaotic rooms. When you refuse to engage in the drama, you maintain your footing.
So you are walking steadily, but you are still going to face incoming attacks. That's where the fourth piece comes in, the shield of faith.
Yes, the shield.
In the West, we largely treat faith as a purely mental exercise. It's an intense intellectual trust in God designed to block the fiery darts of the wicked. You just have to believe hard enough, and the anxiety won't hurt you.
And here we see one of the starkest differences in the Ethiopian tradition. While the mental and theological trust is absolutely present, the shield of faith is frequently practiced physically through the somatic act of making the sign of the cross.
Like an actual physical motion.
Yes, this is not just a symbolic gesture. It is viewed as a literal, physical shield deployed in real time. We talk a lot in modern psychology about embodied cognition.
Which is the mind-body connection.
Right, the idea that the mind is not just in the brain, but connected to the physical body. When a negative thought, an intrusive anxiety, or a spiritual attack occurs, making that physical motion engages the body in the act of defense. It snaps you out of the mental loop and grounds you in physical reality.
That physical embodiment anchors you so that you can wear the fifth piece, the helmet of salvation. Your body is fighting, but your mind needs to be insulated. The KJV focuses on the ultimate deliverance of the soul, but building on Blaze's ideas about the modern world, this helmet is about identity. It is knowing you are a chosen one.
Right, knowing your worth.
If your mind is encased in the absolute certainty of your own value and purpose, the outside noise, the opinions of the low vibrational trolls just bounces off the metal. It cannot penetrate your psyche.
And finally, once you are fully defended, you are given the only offensive tool in the entire kit, the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word.
The sword.
Yes. The standard Western tradition uses the 66 books of the Bible to find specific promises to speak truth into a problem. But the Ethiopian tradition, with its massive 81-book canon, has a much deeper armory to draw from.
Right. They have all those extra texts.
Including mystical texts like the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees, as well as the accumulated wisdom known as the Words of the Fathers. But the crucial point across both traditions is that you do not use this sword to slice at people.
You don't use it to win internet arguments.
Exactly. You use the power of spoken ancient words to slice through the atmospheric negativity and change the energy of your environment.
To really ground all of these abstract, heavy concepts, our sources included a stunning piece of visual art created for the Royal Love community. Let me describe this in detail because it brings this entire ancient armory into a sharp, beautiful, modern reality.
It's a gorgeous image.
It really is. Imagine a vintage-style poster, rich in deep greens and glowing golds. In the center is a black woman radiating absolute, unshakable calm.
Unshakable.
Yeah. She has a glowing golden aura or halo around her head, which the poster labels the helmet of salvation-protected mind. Her arms are crossed over her chest, a defensive posture, but relaxed and peaceful, resting over a glowing heart, labeled the breastplate of mercy righteousness.
I want to highlight the juxtaposition in that imagery. She is fully armored, conceptually, but she is not in an aggressive militaristic stance. She is perfectly at rest within her defenses.
Yes, she looks completely immovable. Around her waist is a glowing belt inscribed with ancient symbols, labeled Hamanot girt with truth.
The truth belt.
Floating in the space next to her is a large, ornate, circular shield, bearing the image of a cross and a lion, the shield of faith. On her other side floats an open, glowing book, the sword of the spirit, the enlightening word.
It's so detailed.
She is standing barefoot, but her feet are surrounded by these beautiful, stylized, flowing waves of water, which are labeled feet shod with peace. And the text at the very bottom anchors the entire philosophy. It says, "Walk in love, sleep in peace, you are covered."
It is a masterful visual synthesis. It takes the heavy, metallic Roman soldier imagery of the first-century Mediterranean world and transforms it into an aura of spiritual light and emotional boundaries suited for a modern individual.
It's beautiful, but I have to bring us back to the practical reality of our core mission today. We are talking about getting into bed and getting a deeply restorative night's sleep.
Right.
Armor, no matter how beautifully you paint it, is by definition heavy. It is rigid. It is designed for a battlefield. The psychology of wearing armor implies that you are at war.
Yes, it does.
So how can a human being possibly power down their nervous system and reach a deep REM cycle while their brain is visualizing wearing full combat gear? It seems entirely counterintuitive. You can't sleep in a metal suit.
That is the exact tension that makes Blaze's recontextualization of this ancient text so brilliant. She deeply understands the physiology of sleep. She knows that you cannot sleep if your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response, is engaged.
So what does she do?
She takes this ancient battlefield equipment and performs a radical psychological transformation on it. She turns the cold, hard armor of war into a warm, weighted blanket for the bed.
This is where the source material gets incredibly practical. In her video transcript titled The Nighttime Armor, Blaze literally walks her followers through the process of getting dressed for rest.
Getting dressed for rest.
Yeah. She opens by saying, "We talk about the armor of God for the battle, but did you know that armor is also your blanket of peace? Let's put it on together. It is such an intimate, calming invitation."
Let's break down exactly what she is doing in this routine. Because while she is using spiritual language, from a clinical psychological perspective, she is initiating an incredibly effective step-by-step cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, routine for sleep.
Let's walk through her exact steps. First, she addresses the belt of truth. She says, first, we wrap ourselves in truth. Shake off the lies the world told you today about who you are. You are enough. You are loved. That's the only truth that matters right now.
In CBT, this is known as cognitive restructuring. Throughout the day, we experience minor rejections, failures, or slights. Our anxious brains tend to internalize these events as core truths about our identity. Like, I messed up that presentation, therefore I am a failure.
We've all done that.
By consciously telling the listener to shake off the lies, she is guiding them to actively detach their core identity from the day's transient events. Reaffirming you are enough is a powerful grounding technique that signals profound psychological safety to the brain.
Next, she moves to the breastplate of righteousness. She says, next, we cover our hearts. Whatever mistakes happen today, forgive yourself. Your heart is protected by mercy. Sleep with a clean conscience.
This step is vital for overcoming insomnia. Guilt and rumination are the primary engines of sleeplessness. If you lie in bed agonizing over a mistake you made at 2 p.m., your body continually pumps cortisol, the stress hormone, into your bloodstream. And cortisol actively blocks the production of melatonin.
So feeling guilty literally keeps you awake.
Literally. By framing the breastplate as mercy and instructing the listener to actively forgive themselves, she is systematically shutting down the rumination cycle. The clean conscience is not just a spiritual ideal. It is a physiological prerequisite for deep sleep.
Then we get to the shoes of peace. She instructs, kick off the stress. Your feet have carried you through the day, and now they rest in the gospel of peace. You aren't running anymore.
Here she employs a powerful somatic cue. Kicking off the shoes is a physical metaphor for releasing the day's burdens. But the key phrase is, you aren't running anymore.
Because anxiety makes you feel like you're running.
Exactly. When you are anxious, your body prepares to physically run from danger. By verbally declaring that the running is over, she is instructing the parasympathetic nervous system, the network responsible for the rest and digest state, that it is safe to take control from the fight-or-flight system.
Next is the shield of faith. She says, now lift your faith. It's a golden shield around your room. Any fiery darts of worry about tomorrow, they can't get past this shield.
If ruminating on the past is one thief of sleep, anticipatory anxiety worrying about tomorrow's problems is the other.
Oh, it's a huge one.
Visualizing a golden shield around your room creates a distinct psychological boundary. It is an exercise in compartmentalization. She is effectively saying, tomorrow's problems exist, but they are not allowed in this room. It keeps the threats outside the perimeter so the mind can focus entirely on the present moment.
Then the helmet of salvation. Protect your mind. Put on that helmet. Your thoughts are sealed and safe. No bad dreams can live here.
This directly addresses the fear of the unconscious. Many people subconsciously resist falling into deep sleep because they fear nightmares, or simply fear the loss of control that sleep requires.
I've never thought about it like that.
By declaring the thoughts sealed and safe, she is providing the listener with a sense of agency and sovereignty over their own subconscious mind.
And finally, she finishes with the sword of the Spirit. And finally, hold on to the word. Just one promise. Like the ancient Ethiopian prayers say, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Let that word be your sword against the dark.
Notice the profound shift in the utility of the sword here. It is no longer a weapon for swinging at enemies in the dark. It becomes a focal point.
Like a meditation mantra.
Exactly. In various forms of meditation, practitioners use a mantra, a repeated sound or phrase, to keep the mind from wandering. Here, holding on to just one promise acts as that stabilizing cognitive anchor. If the mind attempts to drift back into the anxiety of the day or the fear of tomorrow, you do not fight the thoughts. You simply return to that single illuminating phrase. The sword becomes a torch.
It is a stunning, deeply effective routine. She finishes the video by saying, you aren't just sleeping, you're standing tall even while you lay down. You are covered. You are sealed. Stay lit, stay blessed, and have a beautiful night's rest.
It's beautiful.
And the visual source material pairs this exact exhaling feeling with an image that simply says, dear friends, have a blessed sleep. Featuring text wishing God's blessing of good health and happiness set against a deep red nighttime sky with a yellow crescent moon and stars. It is the visual embodiment of that final, peaceful sigh before sleep takes over.
By ritualizing the dismissal of the day's stress in this step-by-step manner, she's created a profound transition mechanism. The day is definitively, unequivocally over. The armor is on, not for a midnight war, but as a heavy-weighted blanket of profound peace.
Now, we have spent a lot of time today in the realms of high-level spiritual theology, ancient history, and clinical psychology. But I want to make a hard pivot here, because to truly understand Glaze's framework, we have to look at the bridge between the spiritual and the purely physical.
Right, the practical side.
Exactly. Blaze is not a guru sitting on a mountaintop telling people to just meditate their problems away. She is deeply grounded in the grit of material reality, and she actively helps her community navigate highly practical, worldly stressors. Because let's be completely honest, you cannot CBT your way out of an eviction notice.
No, you certainly cannot.
You cannot just use the shield of faith to pay a past due electric bill. Financial terror is arguably the ultimate energy vampire. If you don't have rent money, you are not getting a good night's sleep, no matter how many times you recite Psalm 91.
I am so glad we are addressing this, because holistic peace must account for material realities. Maslow's hierarchy of needs dictates that you cannot focus on spiritual self-actualization if your base physiological needs for food and shelter are under constant threat.
You're just in survival mode.
Right. Poverty and financial instability drain your life force constantly, keeping your nervous system in a perpetual state of hyperarousal.
Exactly, and Blaze recognizes this. So alongside her spiritual teachings about armor and energy vampires, she has built a whole ecosystem of highly practical, financial, and communal support.
What kind of support?
Well, she runs a YouTube channel called The Fiaverse, where she offers free, accessible introductory videos on investing for beginners. She moderates a Facebook group called Are We Vibin, specifically designed for her community to gather, support each other, and network, which combats that loneliness epidemic we touched on earlier.
That's incredibly practical.
It is. And she offers highly accessible, paid one-on-one services. You can book a 15-minute phone call with her specifically about investing for $21.99, which includes a deeper dive investing package and a study guide. Or if you need the spiritual side, you can book a spiritual energy reading phone call for $38.83, which comes with an energy forecast package and its own study guide.
When you view these practical services through the lens of everything we've discussed today, it makes perfect, holistic sense. Financial literacy and community networking are the modern material manifestations of the ancient armor.
It's all connected.
By offering practical investing advice alongside spiritual boundary setting, she is acknowledging a profound truth. Financial peace and spiritual peace are two sides of the exact same coin of self-protection. You need the ancient belt of truth to protect your soul, but you absolutely need a basic understanding of compound interest to protect your future.
I think that is the thesis of this entire exploration. She is giving her community the practical tools to fortify their material reality so that their spiritual reality actually has a safe, secure place to land and rest.
And that is the ultimate goal of this framework. The ancient texts, the psychological boundary setting, the financial literacy, none of it is about escaping the world. It is all in service of creating a life where you are not a passive victim to the world's chaos. You are insulated, you are prepared, you are grounded, and therefore you are capable of experiencing true peace.
So to bring this directly to you, the listener, as you go about your evening tonight, I want you to look closely at how you currently get dressed for rest.
Take an honest inventory.
Do you take your worries, your unanswered emails, your social media arguments, and your financial anxieties into bed with you? Are you leaving the front door of your mind wide open for any low vibrational troll to wander in and steal your energy?
Or are you going to choose to intentionally unburden yourself?
Are you going to shake off the lies of the day, forgive yourself for the mistakes you made at 2 p.m., and put up a golden, impenetrable shield at your bedroom door?
It's a choice.
We have taken a massive journey today. We started with the foundational philosophy of the mind as a garden, precious ground where your words act as seeds and your tongue holds the power to shape your reality.
We explored the absolute necessity of establishing boundaries against energy vampires, realizing that microsolitude isn't avoidance. It's simply putting up the velvet rope at the VIP club of your mind.
We then explored the ancient perimeter defenses found in Psalm 91. We contrasted the Western doctrinal approach with the deeply embodied spiritual warfare tactics of the ancient Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, where we learned that you can only truly sleep when you have established psychological dominance over the chaos that stalks in the dark.
We looked at the armor of God, exploring how living honestly, acting with generosity, and avoiding drama form the core of your personal defense.
And we saw how brilliantly that heavy, ancient combat gear can be transformed into a restorative nighttime blanket of peace, a step-by-step cognitive routine to definitively end the day, supported by the very real, practical armor of financial literacy.
It is a profound, comprehensive system designed for navigating an increasingly hostile, noisy world without losing your core self, your energy, or your rest.
As we close this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over tonight when you turn off the lights.
Okay, what is it?
We talked extensively about Psalm 91 and that promise of the secret place of the Most High. For centuries, theologians and everyday people have imagined that secret place as a physical fortress, or a grand cathedral, or a hidden room you can lock yourself inside.
Right, a physical location.
We discussed how the ancient Ethiopian tradition views the demon in the darkness as a literal threat to your night, and how modern frameworks view energy vampires as a daily drain on your life force. So what if, for the modern individual, for the chosen one navigating a digital world, that sacred, impenetrable secret place isn't a geographical location at all?
Oh, interesting.
What if that secret place is actually the physiological and spiritual state of deep, uninterrupted REM sleep? It is a daily divine reset where your brain actively heals its neurons, your body recovers its strength, and the noise of the world literally cannot reach you.
That's a beautiful way to think about it.
But here is the catch and the challenge for you tonight. You can only access that divine secret place once you have truly learned to put down your sword, wrap yourself in the blanket of truth, and fiercely, unapologetically protect your peace. Have a blessed sleep.